Oh, yeah.
We're live.
Boom. Looking live. This is the College Basketball Podcast presented by the Three-Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. Matt Cox playing host tonight. Jim Root, Kai McKeon joining me, recapping the season that was, the Final Four that was, albeit it was a abbreviated Final Four for me, which we'll get into in a bit here. I'll have to answer for my crimes. But Kai, Jim, how was the Monday night national title game between the Aztecas and the UConn Huskies, the national champions of the 2023 season? Kai, go to you first.
It was okay. It started off really good. San Diego State got off to a hot start. UConn got off to a hot start. It was back and forth. It was energetic. I tweeted this game rocks, and then it went downhill. San Diego State, as kind of predicted by us, they got dismantled, made a little comeback in the second half, but all for naught. UConn title winners. It was fine, Matthew. It was my third favorite of the three I've seen live Final Fours.
Yeah, Kai, I'm with you there. It was fun in the first half, especially because I remember turning to Rob Doster next to us and saying, wow, there's 2 minutes left in the half and both teams have 16 fouls. Like, this has been kind of a good flow to it. And then the second half was a complete foul fest. Ugly. At least San Diego State made it close, cut it down to 5. And then we got that nice Jordan Hawkins curl 3. And we'll get more into heaping praise on UConn and their dominant run. But Matt, yeah, they won 2 games at the Final Four by 30 combined. I feared that was going to be the case as we entered the Final Four. And that was the final thing. The one thing I realized, the benefit of going home that Matt's got, I haven't heard a Final Four game announced in 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, whatever. Like, I don't hear Nance, you don't hear Hill, you don't hear any of that stuff. You don't hear, I don't know, you get the crowd noise. Matt, how was it watching at home? You big loser, you.
He was at a bar.
I was at a bar, so I also missed the audio, Jim. But whoever bought out Bird's Nest Chicago, shout out to a top 5 wing establishment here in the Chicago proper area. Kai shaking his head reluctantly as the wing expert of this forum.
Yeah.
Heavy San Diego State contingent. I'm going to wager there were lots of wagerers on the Aztecs, not like some odd San Diego to Chicago pipeline, but everyone and their mother was on the Aztecs, so the mood quickly dampened once UConn built their lead. I enjoyed it. It feels very much to me like the 2018 Final Four with Villanova, which after Loyola kind of got bounced, my interest quickly subsided for that title game. Nova obviously beating Michigan by 17 to clinch their title. UConn versus 2018 Villanova. Kai, best of 7 series, who wins?
That's a good question.
I know. I ask great questions.
Villanova.
Jim, I'll go to you.
Villanova. I mean, there's just more NBA like talent on that team. Yeah, like Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges. Yeah. Look at those guys are doing in the NBA right now. Eric Paschall was a first-round pick. DiVincenzo was a first-round pick. That team was ludicrously stacked. I feel like I'm forgetting an NBA player. That's how good they were. I would still go Nova. That's not fair to start this pod with shade at UConn, Matt. They just won a title. I know.
I'm sorry. Dan Hurley's awesome. No coach's stock has risen faster in my book than Dan Hurley. Great team. I just saw we're putting UConn in the historically great team conversation, and I wanted to maybe pump the brakes on that. I don't know if I buy that, but yeah, pardon me for starting off this podcast with a sour, pour cold water on the Huskies who had a great year. Hey, our outline today, pretty quick and dirty. We're going to recap the Final Four. We're going to talk some of the major news and notes that has been, our heads are spinning trying to keep up with the transfer portal and some of the coaching carousel stuff. The portal has one-upped itself. Like, I thought last year we saw an all-time number of star players. This year, there's just like a dime a dozen. You can find not a 5, so you can find a legit game changer in multiple nooks of the portal. So we'll get through all that. But before we do, we must, of course, promote Mr. Joe Paschall, aka Jay Pitty, who I've not seen or heard from in quite some time, but I don't need to because I know he does the best in the college basketball intro, outro music sphere. Miss you, Joe. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, Podbean, among other platforms where you can leave glowing, gushing reviews of the 5-star variety. That's the only kind we do officially accept and acknowledge on this podcast. And if you do follow those guidelines, Kai McKeon will read your review, in which case you can ask a question, ask us anything. Kai, please.
2 reviews. First one, Coach Hastings, the real number 1, the podcast with the deepest knowledge. That's the review. We love it. Thank you so much. 5 stars. Thank you, Coach Hastings.
Number 2, short and sweet, like Texas Southern stay in the NCAA tournament. How about that? I don't know.
Thanks, Jim. Good commentary. Matthew M, and I presume his phone number. I'm not going to read it just in case it is his phone number. Best CBB pod. Love the pod. Glad you started a YouTube channel. Tell all my friends about the pod. I'm super excited to see you guys on the Action Network. Question: did I see you guys at Hoops and Hops at the Cosmo on day 1 of the tourney? I didn't want to bother you by your names, but that event was amazing. Hope to see you boys there next year. I was the Penn State fan. Yes, that was us. We were at Hoops and Hops. It was fantastic. Boy, cannot recommend that place enough, Jim. That seems to be the Thursday spot going forward for the Vegas trip.
No, it was terrible. Don't go there because it's general admission and I don't want more people there rushing for seats. It was fantastic. And if you're in Vegas, don't feel bad about saying hi. That would never bother us. We are still, Matt, we're at the fame level. I think you and I discussed this, the fame level, or maybe it's Kai and I.
It's the best fame
It's still really cool when someone recognizes you. I want to talk to people. That's great. I'm a big fan of it. And what Matt is like.
How many more years
over there?
I wonder. Yeah, sorry, I have like a hangnail. It's kind of gross. Wonder how many more years we're gonna have GA at that. That was too good of a setup to be GA for much longer. Like to have a sports book right outside and that much interest in a pretty primo location. So hopefully they don't charge out the wazoo for that. But yeah,
I've been pushing for the ballroom experience for our Thursday just to try it to see if we liked that big atmosphere. And man, they do it right. There's a lot of screens, a lot of space. Everyone's engaged in the games. The Furman game winner was as good as it gets. I think we already talked about that in this pod. So shut up, Jim. Move on.
Easy food and drink access, always key commodities as part of the experience. Kai reviews, thank you for those. Personal corner, Jim, doing a little bit of a postseason trip, seeing some familia down in Florida, Florida, for those of you not speaking Spanish. And then Kai and myself are back in the Mecca of Chicago.
Yes.
Doing whatever we're doing. What are you doing, Kai? I don't even know what you're doing.
Just hanging out, Matthew. But we are heading to St. Louis next week for the MAC. We're going to the USPWA Awards, the Oscar Robertson Trophy we presented. Matt and I will be boots on the ground. Zach E's going to be there. Caitlin Clark is going to be there. Bill Walton is going to be there. Shaka Smart. I'm excited to talk to all of those individuals, Matthew, and regale them with my tales of watching them. How about that? That's a good one.
I can't wait to ask Bill Walton what his favorite St. Louis memories are over his illustrious career. I'm sure he's probably been there once or twice, but man.
I have 2 questions for Bill
awesome.
Walton to try to get him on my side, Matt. Number 1 is, what do you think of St. Louis? We'll just have like a little icebreaker there. Number 2, I'm going to say, sell me on the Grateful Dead. Where should I start? Where should I go with first, listening wise, and in order to become a fan? I'm going to do that. He's going to talk to me for hours. It's going to be awesome. We're going to be fast friends.
Yeah, that answer will never end. I love it.
That's a good. Kai, do you have a genuine interest though in getting into Grateful Dead?
If Bill Walton convinces
me,
yes. Well,
okay.
We'll see.
I've done my Deadhead. I've kicked the tires on the Deadhead whole thing. I just don't quite get it. But if it means Bill Walton can go on a whole, rant about his pet, yes, I'm here for all of that. Any good story time with Bill Walton's good content.
Yeah.
Other website updates, no. But we do have a tab where you can buy stuff, buy our cool merch, which you may have seen us wearing in Vegas, and you can be a walking billboard for us. We'd appreciate that. And you can donate some money to us if you feel so compelled, but don't feel compelled if you don't want to. That is all we have for the top of the list. Let's get to Roots Roundup.
Let's do it, Matt. It's time to talk Roots Roundup. It's news, it's notes. Hey, the big headline, key headline here in the sport, not sure if anybody noticed, UConn is the national champions. Wow. Mm-hmm. Congratulations to the Huskies. Incredibly dominant run. First team in the history of the tournament to win every game by 13 or more. They have now won 5 titles in the past 25 years. Later in the show, we'll get a little more into the depths of the run and whether they're a blue blood and all that kind of goodness. I'm sure Matt has a strong opinion as a supporter of 2 theoretical blue buds. But man, just fantastic work by the Huskies. 17-0 against non-conference competition, 16-0 and one push against the spread against non-conference foes this year. 24-point margin of victory, not cover margin, 11.8 cover margin. Like you just go through number after number and it was an obnoxious run. Just it truly a hat tip to the Huskies. First 2 months of the year, last 1+ months of the year, they were the best team. Like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. All three of us got to see him in person. Kai more than the rest of us with his Portland stay. But Kai, anything real quick to talk about UConn before we get into them in more detail later?
Yes, I was happy they won because they were the best team in the country this season. They proved that they were. They're not an all-time great team. They're just not. They have that ability, but they lost 8 games this season. We can't call them an all-time great team, but fantastic. Best team this season. Again, glad they won. Glad they won over San Diego State, who frankly was not my champion. # not my champion. Would have been a little bit of a cheap feel if they would have won. We'll talk about ratings a little bit later, but I think it's good for the sport and obviously good for Dan Hurley to finally get the monkey off his back in the tournament.
Yeah, I got all the monkeys off his back.
Yeah, right.
Matt, UConn being good is great for the sport.
UConn being good, yeah, that just feels good for me. So I'm trying to think of like a list of other programs that need to, climb back toward relevancy.
Indiana,
UConn, a big one. Yeah, Indiana has been irrelevant for a while, so it's tough.
Yeah, we'll see him in the Sweet 16 someday, Matthias. Same with
someday.
Both our alma maters. One game
round
away
of 32 specials, baby.
So where we couldn't quite get there. All right, coaching news again. To reiterate, the plan is in 2 weeks today. Very extensive coaching hire grades podcast. So we're not going to get into the nitty gritty detail here. But since the last time we have discussed, Temple hired Adam Fisher. Kai, last time while we were on air, CY Young rejected the Owls. Yes. They ended up going with Adam Fisher, an assistant at Penn State under Micah Shrewsbury. Seems like a pretty good hire considering how well Shrewsbury did this year.
Yeah, there's differing opinions on that one, Jim, but I've heard some people like it, some people don't. So TBD, again, we'll get into the coaching grades in a couple of weeks, but yeah.
Yep. Sam Houston State promoted from within. Chris Mudge, he was the associate head coach under Jason Hooten. Oral Roberts did the same thing. Russell Springman was the associate head coach under Mills. He is now in charge in Tulsa. And NJIT hired Grant Billmeyer. He's an assistant at Maryland, was also at Seton Hall under Kevin Willard. So obviously familiar with New Jersey as a territory, as a state. And lastly, Manhattan hired John Gallagher. This was met with some interesting outcry from the players, from several media members who are proponents of Rashawn Storrs and what he did as an interim coach there. What I say to that quickly, though, Matt, is if you hire based on what one group of players wants, it's probably not very wise long-term, especially given that like 90% of their roster was fifth-year seniors and isn't going to be there. So whether you like the John Gallagher hire or not, we'll discuss that at a later date. It's okay to go in a different direction from the interim coach. Yes?
Yeah, I would agree with that. General, of the coaches we just ran through, Adam Fisher is a guy I have my eye on. Circling.
Interesting. Okay.
Underlining.
Is it because of the Shrewsbury background? Is that why?
Shrewsbury, as I'm a sucker for the Shrewsbury tree, also well regarded with his recruiting and coaching ability with the tenure under Larinaga at Miami. So I kind of like just pulling between those two branches as a fusion of coaching brilliance.
Yeah, it all sums perfectly. He takes the best of both worlds and becomes a super coach. We'll see. We will see.
Unstoppable at Temple. Yeah, we'll see.
In recruiting news, 2023, no new commitments here. Everybody, the world is waiting for Bronny James. Okay, whatever, man. It's fine.
Where's he going to go?
Ohio State or nowhere?
USC, Oregon. I think those are in the mix. There's only 3 uncommitted players in the top 100 at this stage. Bronny, Kerry Booth, and Blue Kane, a fantastically named player on the fringe of the top 100. We'll keep you posted on those. 2024, Michigan State got Kur Teng, a 4-star shooting guard, top 40 player. Tom Izzo not slowing down on the recruiting trail at all, given his 2023 class is right up there with the best in the country, and then already dipping into the 2024 class. Maybe not a fan of the transfer portal, but he is doing work in the freshman recruiting trail. So tip of the cap, Mr. Izzo. Let's talk transfers quick, though. Again, we will not get into every guy that enters the portal. We're going to try to focus on big commitments, guys that will impact power conference schools, or if there's a superstar mid-major guy, maybe we'll discuss that as well. We got to start with Kirk Kriisa to West Virginia. And Matt, you are the resident Bob Huggins drum beater of this podcast. He just survived the year of Eric Stevenson, Trey Mitchell, Joe Toussaint. does he have what it takes to handle Jose Perez and Kirk Kriisa? Man, it just feels like they're just throwing personalities at Mr. Huggins and seeing if he can handle it.
Yeah, I forgot about Perez. Perez is like, I'm really out on Perez. I'm kind of out on Kirk Kriisa too, but I think if there's a guy who can maybe summon the best out of him and put him in the right position to succeed, both for himself and within the team construct, I think it's Mr. Huggins, man. Like Stevenson, was he West Virginia's best player this season? He was one of their 3 best players, and it's a pretty outlandish statement given he was like kind of a empty calorie guy in Washington and South Carolina the year before that. So I think Huggins deserves the benefit of the doubt when assessing this marriage, even though Kai, I think Chris is pretty overrated as a player in a vacuum.
I mean, I think he's good, but does Bob Huggins not care about defense anymore? I feel like he's just kind of punting it. Last year, he grabbed 3 offensive players, Toussaint maybe okay defense, but they weren't a good defensive team last season. Now you're getting Kriisa and Perez, and he's just like, who cares now? I'm an offensive guy, says Bob Huggins, I guess.
Didn't Kriisa say, like, now I have to start playing defense? Like, I saw that as an actual
as a
quote.
joke.
It's like, well,
weird spot.
Maybe you should have played for Arizona when you were losing in the first round, but hey, that's fine. They didn't lose because of the defense. I'll give them the credit there. JJ Starling's headed to Syracuse. This is rather old news, one of the first commitments in the portal, but he was a big time recruit at Notre Dame. Seemed like a foregone conclusion he was going to be orange after he entered the portal, and he's headed there. Kai, I don't know if you have a big commentary on this. He was relatively inefficient for the Irish, and we don't know a ton about Autry yet as a coach in charge of Syracuse. So any quick thoughts here?
He's good. Does anybody ever bring up the fact that I assume Autry's going to play the zone still? Does anybody bring up the fact that maybe that hurts?
Yeah.
That hurts people's draft stock. Like, you only play zone in college. I know they
don't know how to play defense.
Yeah.
But like,
I feel like it does him a disservice.
Like Wesley Johnson was a top 5 pick and presumably was going to be a great defender.
About Thibault. Matisse Thibault, right? And there are a couple of good successful. Yeah.
But it's just a harder translation, right? Like, I don't know. Yeah. You just figuring out the man principles, the rotations. It's a different set of like communication too. I do think there are Syracuse fans that are expecting him to not play the zone or optimistic that he won't. Very curious to see how that goes, because obviously he is a Boeheim disciple, but it doesn't feel like, I don't know, it doesn't feel that's optimal in this day and age of more shooters on the floor, better ball movement. I don't know that it works that well. Out west we go to Colorado, the land of the Buffaloes, where Eddie Lampkin is headed there. Matt, the big dancing bear, burly big man with, I would say, close to chicken legs. It's probably throwing shade at him, and he could stuff me in a locker, so I should be nice. But Colorado brings back a lot. They had a pretty solid recruiting class, including a 5-star recruit. The Buffaloes, a sneaky team under the radar next year.
Yes, I think it's a great fit for Boyle Ball. And Eddie, if you're listening to this, I don't co-sign to take the chicken legs. Please don't hurt me, as you will hurt Jim. But it feels like I just need to get away from whatever that was at TCU, and Colorado Boulder feels like such a therapeutic place to go play your basketball, right? Not just the fit within the system of Boyle Ball, but also just the destination of Boulder. So
it sounds like Matt's encouraging him to use the legal weed in Colorado.
The very legal and very accessible and cost effective marijuana. Yes, I am.
There you go. Kai, our boy Kim English, brought his best player with him from George Mason. That would be Josh Orduro. Big man, all conference level player in the A10. It seems like he's going to keep some key pieces there too. I will give him this, that Friars roster has some real bright spots on it. If I'm wrong about him as a coach, that team could be really good. I will concede that.
Yeah, it looks good on paper. So is his last 2 George Mason teams. Josh Oduro's stats against tier A and B, not great. I think he's a good player. I think he's a great player in the A10. We'll see what he does in the Big East. We'll see.
Yeah, playing alongside Bryce Hopkins, does that fit work that well? I don't know. We'll see. We will see what he's able to do, like you said. Namari Burnett headed to Michigan, a guy that we loved out of high school, out west in California. Didn't pan out in his first stop, then toward the ACL. Didn't quite work out at Alabama either. Kind of a bummer. But hey, Michigan, fresh start. I think he's immediately eligible because he sat out the year before he went to Bama. So he isn't on his second one-time waiver. That's going to be something to monitor with transfers. There are a lot of guys in the portal that seem like they're expecting to get a waiver, and the NCAA has made it relatively clear that it's going to be more difficult this year. There are no coaching change waivers. There's far less, maybe no runoff waivers. So it's going to be difficult if you're not a grad transfer or a first-time transfer to get eligible. Something to keep an eye on. Keon Mennefield headed from Washington to Arkansas. Matthew Musselman strikes in the portal first. I'm sure he will not be done. A lot still to do on that roster for the Razorbacks, but Mennefield is solid in his first year at Washington. Can we turn him into a useful SEC player? Where do you land?
Yeah, I mean, he did that with Council and all these other guys that I didn't really think would be that good. And Mennefield was really well regarded in Washington coming into that class. So I think people like him a lot as a potential upside popper. So I would be betting that the Musselman's the right guy to get that out of him. So yeah, I kind of like on the paper did seem like a big get, but the amount of hype surrounding it was actually justified because I think he will be a pretty good piece there.
I believe he was the all-time leading scorer at his high school, like big time high school scorer. So not bad for him. Noah Reynolds headed to Wisconsin from Wyoming. A buddy of mine asked for a quick scouting report. Really good driver, decent shooter, not like a lights out knockdown guy you have to panic and close out to. Decent fit for the swing, not a super up-tempo player. I like getting another guard in there next to Hepburn because I just don't fully trust him. Having another ball handler, I think, makes sense. So I think it's a pretty solid fit all in all, especially with Tyler Wallback using his fifth year. Perhaps Wisconsin will resurface back in the NCAA tournament, Kai, and not just sit there with one leg in the bubble, one leg in the NIT. And that was pretty much their entire campaign this year.
I bet they make it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. John Tanjay to Mizzou, Kai. Hey, how about this?
Cool.
Combo guard forward, gives you a little bit of everything, can guard multiple positions, can shoot the three. Super useful role player in the way that Gates wants to play. Stamp of approval for me.
Perfect stylistic fit for Mizzou, for Gates.
Love it. Matt, I made you talk Washington with Mennefield. Now you're going to talk Washington with Moses Wood, who apparently got a nice bag to attend the Huskies. This is his fourth school now. If you recall, he was at Tulane, then UNLV, then Portland. Now Washington. How does his career finish for the Huskies?
I think you have a ready-made, versatile. I'm not sure if he's going to be the alpha dog there, but man, he can do some stuff. Loved him at Portland. Weird collapse to that season last season just because of some injuries there, but he can play both ways. Mismatch nightmare. Even in the Pac-12, I don't think the WCC to Pac-12 step up is anything almost at this point. And yes, he played at Portland. I don't think this is a big. He won't be shell shocked by the pace and size and speed of the game there at all. So I love Moses Wood. Been a fan of him since, 2020, basically.
If he's their alpha dog, they will be bad. I'm just going to say that.
Is he worth $400,000?
Is that how much he got paid? No, he's not worth that much.
$400,000.
Yeah.
That's the word on the street.
That much. I think he'll be one of their three best players. I'm actually not as terrified of that as Jim is, but I think the fact that he was a pretty key part of their defense at Portland and Portland's defense was kind of bad is probably pointing to a bad defensive omen if you're a Husky fan.
Yeah, he's one of the three best players on Portland, and they were 180th and 157th in KenPom. You do that in the Pac-12 and you'll win 5 games. That's my point. Like if that's as good as you are with him as a top 3 player, you're not very good in that league. Next up, Matthew, another WCC transfer headed to the Big Ten this time. Mike Mitchell Jr., a potential pro prospect from Pepperdine. Somebody we liked, but he does take a lot of mid-range jumpers. How much of that was Romar? How much of that was Mitchell? Do you think Ben Johnson, who hasn't been a great Big Ten coach so far, can fix that?
Yeah, I don't know how much he'll change his shot selection, but at least he'll put a more sturdy support system around him that actually plays as a team and defends as a unit, as opposed to we just go out there and play haphazard defense as we did at Malibu at Pepperdine. I don't know. I kind of think for Minnesota, it's you take your shot on talent, right? I think Johnson's taking the right swing here. You don't have anything to lose. Your recruits have been fringe 3-star, low end 4-star. There's just not a ton of talent and I think the gap in talent really showed last season, especially when Garcia and Battle are out of the lineup. So I see what he's trying to do here, just plug the talent gap a little bit and then trust his coaching chops. So yeah, I guess I like what Johnson's doing here.
I don't. I don't know if he's long for this world. I'm concerned. Just continuing to build mid-major all-star teams isn't.
Yeah, get some freaking talent there, man. Like you can be the best coach in the world. These rosters suck the last 2 years. It's ridiculous. The Big Ten team.
Yeah, you can't rely on Luke Lowy as much as he has.
Oh.
Sorry, Luke. That was a ricochet shot, but just tough to be a good Big Ten team with those as the key players there. Jaquan Walton's headed from Wichita State to Alabama. This is one of the, is he going to be eligible guys? I don't think he is going to graduate. I think that's the hope of the Crimson Tide, but if he's not, I don't know how he gets eligible here because Wichita State didn't run him off. Runoff waivers don't exist. He's gone from a 4-year college to a 2-year to a 4, now to a second 4. And that is like the definition of not immediately eligible. We'll see. Seems like a great scheme fit given the way he plays, but if he's not eligible, then that's a problem for the Tide. They need to continue building that roster. They've lost some to the portal, a lot to the pro ranks. Alabama, very much a projection team if you have them high in your top 25s at this stage. Jameer Nelson Jr. to TCU, Kai. I'm kind of excited by this. TCU needing a playmaking guard with Mike Miles headed to the NBA, especially if Damian Baugh is back for his extra year, a little more defense size in that backcourt, an extra playmaker alongside him. I think that could work. I think that could work under Jamie Dixon.
Yeah, he's really talented. We'll see what he does in the Big 12. I worry about some of these guys moving up levels. Like you saw Aaron Estrada dominate the Colonial. He was a nothing burger at Oregon, went back to the Colonial and won the Player of the Year 2 years in a row. So it's like there's a big leap for some of these guys. Jameer Nelson's not very big. I mean, he's kind of good size for his position, I suppose, but I'm not sure. He's not a great shooter. We'll see.
Yep. Matthew Jordan Wright to LSU. Not sure if you have a lot of thought on this. He's a useful SEC player. We've at least seen him prove himself in this conference at Vanderbilt. And LSU needs talent. You were as big of a detractor, hater of the Bayou Bengals as any this year. Do you think this moves the needle for them at all?
I don't move the needle. It's a good piece, though, for sure. Like versatile, 6'6" wing, can shoot, pass, defend. I mean, yeah, it kind of does jack of all tradesy, but doesn't excel in any one particular area. That's kind of when I watch Wright. That's how I envision him. So I kind of like him as like a glue guy, but yeah, LSU needs to really bolster talent, similar to the whole Ben Johnson thing we just went through Minnesota to compete with the arms race that is the SEC right now.
Yep. Speaking of Ben Johnson in Minnesota, Kai, they lost Jamison Battle to the portal. Big time shooter on the wing at 6'7". Had a rather inefficient year because he started injured, but he's headed to Ohio State. I think that's a good fit, veteran presence alongside Thornton and Gale, the young backcourt that I think is really going to emerge next year, assuming Sensabaugh is gone. But I think Ohio State is going to bounce back in a big way next season.
Yep, me too. And Holtman, he did not play to his level last season we're used to seeing. Had that lull. They're going to be right back up there, I think. Top 25-ish team. Great fit for them, I agree. Battle.
Yep.
I love Battle. Yep. Yeah, I think he scores at will. I mean, again, I think it's the same Ohio State story where defensively they're but offensively they should be all the way good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, other random news and notes. Finish up. That's all the transfers we're hitting. There are some that are borderline that we could have discussed. Sorry if we didn't get to your favorite player. Zach Edey won the Wooden Award. And what do we say, Weave? Yay.
Hooray.
Yay. Or
good boy, Zach.
That also works. Yeah. We were all in on Mr. Edey to win at a decent price after PK 85. Just thoroughly dominant out there and was able to withstand the challenge of Jalen Wilson and Trace Jackson Davis. Swept every single Player of the Year award, 6-time Big Ten Player of the Week. Just absolutely dominant year for Mr. Edey. Kai, does he come back next year?
I think he does. Yeah. I mean, I haven't heard anything about the NBA. He is 7'4", but he doesn't really shoot. We all know how the NBA thinks of guys like him, and guarding in space, I've heard, is not his strong suit. I've seen it's not a strong suit. Yeah, but Jim, aside from 6-time Big Ten Player of the Week, 26 different awards, including all tournament teams for Zach Edey this year. It's a full trophy case he's got at home.
Yeah. Purdue fan in the chat, Dick Stillwagon, says that Purdue is likely expecting him back. I believe they're 12th in Bart Torvik right now, with him excluded in the 2024 ranks. If you add him back in the roster cast, they jump to numero uno. That's how good he is. He kind of breaks the projection system, Matt, a guy that is like hyper efficient on 33% usage. It's really tough to factor that in.
It's amazing that he played such a heavy workload this year. That was kind of the concern or question with him. But they played 30 minutes a game, whatever, close to 30 minutes a game. If Purdue had endless amounts of NIL cash, I think it'd be a no-brainer for him to return. I would assume he's probably weighing some financial options, given I know Purdue is somewhat lacking on that front relative to the, Michigans or Indianas, so to speak.
Yeah, and they got overtaken by Miami for Nigel Pack last year. It seemed like Pack was headed there, would have been a perfect fit for a team needing extra
team
shooting.
With Pack, are you serious? Oof.
Yeah, I'm hoping they're able to add another shooter, because I think with the extra experience in the backcourt, Kai, suddenly I go from, I think Purdue's the vulnerable 1 seed that goes down early, to next year that team can win it all, finally get the Big Ten title. Am I crazy for that?
No, they're top 5 for me next year if ED's back, for sure.
Yep.
With the bullet.
Agreed. Speaking of these early rankings, way too early rankings, that's what everyone calls them. There's a lot of like, why do we do these? Or there's been like started the pushback on Twitter of like, these don't matter. They're wrong. They're going to be wrong when everything changes. I just don't get why it bothers people. Like, you don't have to click on it. You don't have to read it. You don't have to consume the reactions to it. What's the harm in it, Matt? I think it's fun to have them out there. What's your take on it?
Love it. You can put out a 2030 way too early rankings, and I'm here for all of it. I have the right to tell you you're an idiot and that you need to do other things with your life, but I love that it's there. It's just good content given this in the blank void of the college hoops ethos. Consensus groupthink is once again rampant, as we typically see. I want to talk our FAU Owls and how crazy we're going to go with them for next year, since Arcane Nick Boyd has already declared the entire roster coming back, which is
the postseason presser. So where do you land on it, Matt? Are you super, like, there are people ranking them 3rd, 4th? No, there's some people have more. I've
seen
like
some top
17th, 18th.
Every year until this one, I've followed the Jim Root script of don't, react to a postseason run. Base your prognostication on the overall body of work of the prior season and what's coming in the off season. FAU is an exception for me, because I kind of feel like they were playing like a top 10 team down the stretch, and every bit of it felt legitimate, which debunks every prior notion of logic. But I don't know. I watched what I saw for those 4 games, and for most of the season when they weren't getting the national attention. So I might be an FAU top 5 guy the more I've thought about it. So come at me for it.
Then I'm going to make you answer this before we get Kai's opinion. Where would you rank them top 5 if Nick Boyd misses a layup at the end of Memphis, or they give Memphis a timeout? Like, I just don't think you would.
No, but I think in this is where I think KenPom talks about how there's cases where like why, like, he's gotten flack because he includes overtime in his ratings, and he's like, well, it's extra data, why wouldn't I use it? So to your point, yes. However, because he made that, we got to see more evidence that FAU can absolutely play with and outplay teams that are in the upper echelon of the spectrum. So while it was only an extra, 3 games for a team that didn't play many big boys all year, that was the question. How would they hold up after just running roughshod through a really good league, not a great league? Again, everything I'm saying with FAU is inconsistent with how I've operated in the past. It's just a different animal. It's different. It's a different animal.
You will not have
them.
You will not have them in your top 5 power ratings. I guarantee that.
I will have them top 10 power rating, maybe not top 5.
So you're going to have them like a 95.
We're not saying numbers right now.
They played to like a 90s. They played to a 95 down the stretch. I think they were there. Absolutely, were there.
Let's not give away the secret sauce, fellas.
I don't think that gives away the sauce. If people can recreate it from that, cheers to them.
FAU top 20 is where they will be. What's interesting, I'm seeing first of all, they do it for clicks, obviously, the way too early top 25. So people click on it. That's why they do it. But everyone has the Elite 8 teams this year in their top 12 for next season, pretty much across the board. And I think that's crazy. I kind of tried to look back a couple times on my phone just to see how many even Elite 8 teams ended up in the top 25 this year from last year. It's like 2. Top 12, excuse me. It's like 2 from last season's tournament. There's so much recency bias, which is like the FAU thing. And it's every single season. I just want some thinkers, Jim, outside the box that don't just look at the tournament to do these ratings,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, what you last saw, this team was playing well. That's part of the issue with FAU is, I think, a team that doesn't have true NBA talent, like, there's not really any threat to go pro on that roster. You have to have everything fall into place perfectly with like chemistry and all that stuff. And it sounds like these guys are in love with the process. I believe that was the quote of one of their FAU bloggers that we talked to. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot of selfishness among them, but sometimes things just break right and you hit your stride. And if you restart everything, go back to the beginning, maybe it's not going to happen that way. So I'm going to be slightly skeptical of FAU and as a top 10. I'll probably rank them like 18th. That's my gut sense of it. And they could move down even further if, a lot of teams really do well in the portal. So Matt, you and I are going to be button heads on the Owls.
Yeah, you can be anti-Al. That sounds like a terrible spot for you to be in. People will bring up this St. Bonaventure comparison, which I think is relevant, right? Team that brought everybody back and then kind of was sort of, going through the motions. Last season, St. Bonaventure, I want to clarify, a year after they make the dance in the COVID year, everybody back supposed to be top 20, top 15 good. Just never really quite. I see the parallels there. I think this FAU team's just hashtag built different, Kai.
Top 20 team.
Yeah, that would be at large. See Jay Letterman asking about it in the chat. Yeah, I think they're definitely at large good.
They were this year for sure. They were at large good this year. So they have the same season? Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, UConn, San Diego State was the lowest rated championship game on record by TV ratings. A little bit alarming because it was on CBS and not cable TBS, which typically would deflate the rating in that sense. Do we care about this? It wasn't a great game. UConn was up double digits almost the entire way. We got that little surge late, but not an awesome game. Kai, is this like a, dang it, I want high ratings to prove that my sport is validated and worthy of caring about? Or are you just like, whatever, shrug?
It's still like really high compared to sports. Like it's like 14 million. Like people are going crazy about the women's championship game. That was 9 million. This was 14. So it's still like
higher than every NBA finals game.
Yes. Yeah. So it's still not in danger of going anywhere, but this is kind of the reason why I really push for good teams to make the Final Four, because I want more eyes on our sports and our sport, and I want it to be representative of the season. So better teams equals more eyeballs equals good for college basketball. So yeah, I do kind of worry about it, Jim. I'm not going anywhere, but you want the better teams playing at the end, I think.
Yep, agreed. Just something, not even brand name. I'm not sitting here like, oh, I wish it was a blue blood. I just wanted to, like, there's a 2 seed that was still in it, Marquette. That gets a better draw because it's like, hey, this team was good all year. And again, San Diego State was good all year. They won their league. They won their league tournament. Yep. Don't want to be unfair to them, but I'd love to see a little more epic championship. Sure, I'm okay with it every once in a while like this, but it can't be every year. Last thing to mention here, the Big East Big 12 battle has come out. The matchups have come out. It is going to be rad, just fantastic. We've already got UConn at Kansas, Texas at Marquette, Houston, again, reminder, Big 12, at Xavier. There's 8 other matchups there. Feel free to highlight them, guys. Kai, I'm looking forward to this. I know the ACC Big 10 Challenge is gone, but maybe this will fill the void in our sad hearts.
Oh, man, it's going to be awesome. Also, so help me out. Is the Big 12 going to 14 teams next year?
Yes.
While Texas LU wait to get in the SEC.
Yep.
So it's going to be the best conference ever, basically.
Yeah. So there'll be no, in this challenge, no Cincinnati, BYU, or UCF. The only one that got in of the newbies is Houston. You're
adding arguably the best team from this season, Houston, who's been a top 3 team last 3 or 4 years. And then you're adding some solid teams in Cincy, UCF, and BYU. It's going to be a freaking gauntlet of a conference. Yeah, this battle is going to be fantastic. Jim, I'm already looking at UConn, Kansas tickets. December 1st, be a great game to go to. Might be hard to get a credential for that one, but I might try.
You're going to journey on down to Lawrence. You did the Midwest tour this year. You're going to do another one and add in Lawrence?
Yeah, it's kind of a pain. So TBD on that one.
Grumpy Kai. Poor guy had to go see great live games.
Good luck to BYU making those travels to the brutal Big 12 home environments.
Vice versa.
Vice versa. Yeah, BYU is going to have to protect serve at home to keep pace there in the Big 12. But my goodness, just unfair. Not fun.
But the BYU to West Virginia to BYU road trip is going to be really rough, akin to the USC and UCLA going to Rutgers.
It's a conference game. It's insane. It's a conference game. It's a cross country fly.
Wild. All right, Matt, I'm going to give it back to you. Let you take back over as host as we get into we've saw that blend of 3-man thoughts, just kind of going over everything from this past weekend in the tournament.
We've saw that. In fact, I did not see this last or this first point to start us off, but the UConn Huskies title winners, they prevail. And I would say dominant fashion, although we forget about that little run the Aztecs made late in the second half to keep it somewhat interesting. Got some, I think, renewed interest from the peanut gallery, but ultimately UConn stomped on their throats when they had to. And yes, we must put UConn in the blue blood all-time program conversations. It's their 5th title. The fifth banner is an illustrious banner for those of you who count banners in the blue blood elite chambers of conversation. Kai and Jim, I know you are part of that, but as a Duke fan and Indiana fan, I can tell you how exhausting it is to always, go 5 versus 4, 5 versus 3 in the banner conversation. Duke with 5, Indiana with 5, and now UConn in that special class. Where do we feel like this program is now with Hurley and how much he's ascended as a coach? Just a year ago, it was like, is Hurley the guy to lead this program after some premature exits? Learning for me, coaches get a lot better, a lot faster than I think we're used to seeing. And I think a lot of that's to do with the awesome assistants that they work with. They're more willing to change and adapt than I think we've seen in years past. Like before, even 10 years ago, I think the same dogs use their old tricks, but now the old dogs will use new tricks, Kai. Sitting with Sam Vecini on the bus ride home after the Final Four game, he kind of gave us the behind the curtains look at all the intelligence, brilliance behind the UConn operation with the assistants, not just from Dan. Yeah. A learning for me. But yeah, Hurley's legit. This UConn team's legit. This program's legit. I have nothing else to add.
It's legit. The blue blood discussion is so dumb, in my opinion. First of all, who really cares? First of all, my proposal: retire the name blue blood. The blue bloods are forever and always UCLA, Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, Indiana. That's it. They Kansas? Are forever. Didn't I say Kansas? Kansas, Kentucky. No. Kansas, Kentucky, UCLA, Duke, North Carolina.
This is why it's a dumb discussion, because there is no clear cut. There is no clear cut definition.
Those are the clear cut 5. They are. They just are. Everyone knows it. They are. Retire the blue blood name. They are forever blue bloods. That's it. Now, everyone else can be great teams. You don't have to be blue bloods. You can be the best team in the country, best program. Retire the name. UConn had a great season. Blue blood, who cares? My take.
So I kind of like this though. So Kai's saying that the blue blood is like you're blue blood, then for 15 or 20 years, it's like that's where you're locked into. And then maybe we can reset it occasionally. But
they're all time.
We can't have a revolving door. I'm with you. We can't have a revolving door of blue bloods.
You're not a blue blood because again, I hate this freaking term. Just because you won recently. No, blue blood, it's an institution. It's an institution. It's historic. It is what it is.
So can it be 1 in, 1 out, Kai? Like
no, there's no changes.
6, no. Okay, all right.
Those are the 5 teams, not Indiana. I don't know why I included them in the first one.
Kai, now you talked me into now I care about this debate. You officially, I've now backed into interest about this debate because now I'm like, well, crap, is Gonzaga blue blood? Villanova blue blood? No. Okay, fine. All right. I think I agree with that. I'm just
Jim. Anyways,
well, I think our king Russ said UConn can't be a blue blood because they only have like 6 Final Fours. But they have 5 titles in 25 years under 3 different coaches. 25 years is a quarter century. I'm not like going to say they're not a historic or elite or blue blood program because they didn't win in 1974. Like I'm going to shrug at that. That doesn't matter to me. I guess blue blood is whatever, Kai, but they are an elite program right now. And like Matt said early in the pod, the sport is better when they're good, like all these other blue blood programs, even like Villanova. I love it when these teams are high level and they're competing and they're at the top of the sport. So I'm glad UConn is back. Credit to Hurley for doing it. I'm glad you brought up the assistant point, Matt, because Young and Murray did such a terrific job with a lot of the game planning, and Hurley was quick to credit them as well. And Tom Moore, shout out to him, third assistant on the staff there. I'm going to ultimately shrug at whether they're a blue blood or not, but I think they're rolling right now, and I'm not going to like throw mud at you if you're insistent that they are. That's fine with me.
Yeah, they haven't felt like a blue blood since like the Ben Gordon days, right? Like it's almost like they kind of lost the luster, even though they had those 2 titles that felt so out of the blue. This one I'm glad they got this one. I think this one kind of puts to bed the shade that people were throwing at them for the last 2, which was, I think, very fun runs from Shabazz and Kemba. They felt very NCAA tournament get hot fluky for sure. So good for the Huskies. Good for UConn. Shouts to Stores.
Do you think every year, like one of these coaches breaks the narrative of what they have been in the tournament? So Hurley never won a first round game until this year. Wins the
terrible
title.
Coach, awful coach. Good coach. All of a sudden,
first round game at Rhodey, I think.
Against Trae Young, maybe.
Yeah, you're right. He won 2. He won 2 at Rhodey. You're right. Yeah. Never was Sweet 16. It's the same thing with Jay Wright, had the same reputation, and then he wins 2 titles. And Tony Bennett had this reputation. So Dan Hurley, is he the next, like, are people going to call him a top 10 coach now in the country? I'm not sure he is, by the way. I'm just saying that's probably going to be a narrative now that he's won a championship. This team was really good, by the way. Talent was pretty high.
I'm going to swipe an argument that I saw this morning on Twitter. T.O., I don't know if it was on After Dark or the DTF podcast, said he's taking over 1.5 more titles for Hurley. So winning 3. There's like 5 coaches ever that have won 3. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take the hard under on that.
Hard under.
Yeah.
Like Izzo, no. Tony Bennett, no. Like Jim Boeheim, no. I can't anticipate it happening. That would be surprising to me, but maybe, I guess. That's too far a bridge to cross just because he suddenly won 1. Again, he's made 1 Sweet 16. You can't say he's going to win 3 titles already. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's an interesting debate. I do think he broke through in a way that feels sustainable this season, right? Not just the tournament, but like really this season from start to finish, starting with the, oh my God, this team is a juggernaut in November. It's kind of mentioned they lost 8 games, so that removes them from greatness consideration, in my opinion. They were consistent start to finish, but their best was by far the best for most of the year. That means something.
Like Tom Izzo's made 7 Final Fours. He's won 1 title. Like It's just really hard. It's so hard.
It is hard. I agree. You're right. I'm going to hold myself away from the prisoner of the moment fire and be a little more pragmatic here. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. I'm losing my mind today here. Just going all in on FAU top 5 and I'm losing path of my roots.
So to the producer we don't have, cut out all these Matt clips and save them for the future so we can throw them back in his face.
I'm going to have to chop an audio doctor this entire podcast now. So speaking of coaches now, Kai, that are under the spotlight of that, Fran McCaffrey, Rick Barnes, who else? Who else feels it?
Who
else is the coach that can't win until they win? Yeah.
Matt Painter's the one that is getting a lot of shade.
Matt Painter. Sorry. That's
He's
right.
Next up.
Painter.
Confirmed he wins the title next year.
Yeah. So we'll have Final Four will be Purdue,
Gonzaga
Tennessee
somehow. Yeah.
Gonzaga will get there and then not win. And then
is Mark Few really under the gun? Guys made like.
No, I think people have moved off that narrative now.
2 championships and 3 or 4 Final Four, whatever he has.
You know who I think is good, got to be due for Final Four soon, just because he's been really good for a lot of years at different programs. It feels like Sean Miller is going to get a Final Four.
Yep.
An Elite 8 at Xavier, I believe 3 Elite 8s at Arizona.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's good. He's really good.
Yeah.
I might throw McDermott in that mix too. But all right, we move along. More thoughts and reactions from the actual Final Four itself, and beyond the Final Four. Get to North Texas here in a second. Best moment of the Final Four, both of you. Go. Was it the Lamont Butler buzzer beater? I guess that's the obvious one, even though for me it was soul-crushing and gut-wrenching, and I hated it. Sorry, Aztec fans. I drew a pretty clear line in the bias saying there.
It was heartbreaking. It was sad. I mean, we were very attached to this FAU team. We tweeted multiple times from our account. We're an FAU organization. We beat the drum form early and often during the season of like, this team is legitimate and not a fun, goofy mid-major that will make the tournament and then flame out. Like seeing the sustainability was very cool. We felt hipster being FAU guys. We're in early and then they go on this run. They knock off Marquise Noel, everybody's darling. It was cool to see out of FAU, but also a little bit, credit to the Mountain West. They finally get an Elite 8 team, a Final Four team, a championship appearance, thanks to some dramatic wins out of San Diego State. I really liked the Matt Bradley press conference after they lost in the title game, talking about how like during COVID when he transferred, he was sort of okay with quitting basketball, and the people at San Diego kind of changed the direction of his life. That's what college sports are about, right? Come on, that's what we love. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
that was cool. I did not expect that because you're right. From someone who was so invested in the FAU thing, I had some blind spots on the San Diego State narratives, and there are plenty there as well. I mean, Dutcher is one of the all-time great guys, and there's numerous reasons to root for them as well. I just, from a basketball fan perspective, didn't have as much affection, even though I had a whole 3-man thought on San Diego State staying power in February about this team, but still they're big, they're deep, they're well coached. And I think it felt very vindication-y for the COVID cancellation of the Malachi Flynn team that was looking like a potential title winner. So good for Dutcher and boys out there in SoCal. North Texas won the NIT, just another validation on top of the FAU run and how good that 16-2 run through the conference was. But then Grant McCaslin basically hops on the next flight out, and he is already getting to work on building something in Lubbock, which feels like the no-brainer all-time A++ grand salami hire of all hires. I mean, is there any, Jim, give me a devil's advocate why this hire isn't perfect.
He plays super slow in the last couple of years, has been really reliant on one of the best late shot clock shot makers in the entire country, and Tyler Perry. Is the defense sustainable, stepping up a level? That's the devil's advocate, Matt. I'm all in. I not to step on our next pod with coaching grades and stuff, but I think McCaslin will succeed there. This is a fan base that has already warmed up to the value of defense and cheering for shot clock violations, that kind of thing. Sort of Virginia adjacent in that regard. He will find talent. He found it at Little Rock. Was that where he was, or was it Arkansas State? I can't remember.
Arkansas State. Yeah.
Arkansas State. Yeah. So he's won everywhere he's been. North Texas was nowhere close. Like, this team was only like 10 spots behind FAU and Ken Pom in out of the CUSA. The program had never been this good. And then 4 straight years basically got better and better and better. Did it with a D2 transfer this year, a JUCO transfer in Perry. It just remarkable coach, knows his X's and O's. I think they're going to be really good in the Big 12.
No arguments.
Mr. McKeon, NIT thoughts. Any other Final Four thoughts in terms of on the court action before we talk about just general fun observations, storytelling?
The right team won. Ken Pom's number one team won, and they were 4th going into the tournament. So a legit title winner. Congrats.
Yeah, I'll do the one more. Like you mentioned, they can't be all-time great. They lost 8 games. Yeah, 4th in their conference, 4 seed. Can't be an all-time great team, but man, were they dominant when they were good. They were as like better than everyone else is good, and they showed it at the right time. And that's how you win a title.
Fun stories. So let's start with the bad and get to the good. The city of Houston. And I haven't run the numbers on how many listeners we have in the Houston area. So I want to be careful before giving my brutally honest opinions on the city layout. And I don't even blame the city of Houston. I think I blame the NCAA and the decisions to have it where they had it, and then have all of the hotels and hotspots sort of scattered across the city. Not ideal, but it's basketball and it's camaraderie, and it's a summit of all the best basketball people out there in the world. So we had a great time had by all. However, if we were having it in another city, maybe we would have preferred that. Kai, how was that delicately put? Good.
No offense to the city of Houston. It sucked as a Final Four city. As a Final Four city. Absolutely sucked. I mean,
it was terrible.
Come on. Although they love their Astros, we tried to go to an Astros game and it was sold out, impossible to get tickets, at least reasonably in the door. It looks like a cool stadium. I was wanting to go. Weather was nice. It was nice to be like warm outside. I will say that. It got a little hot sometimes, but not going to complain about that in late March, early April. Yeah. Houston never needs to host another Final Four though, Jim.
I think we're going to be wishing for Houston next year when we're in Phoenix and the arena is farther and there's no metro rail that takes you very close. Like
we have to rent
that is going to be a lot more of a challenge. Either renting a car or there's going to have to be like a continuous media shuttle type thing. Again, not even just a media complaint. Like fans having to get there is really difficult. And if you can just walk from where everything is, like in New Orleans or San Antonio or Indianapolis, it's just better that way. It just is. And I actually thought it was better than I thought. I've been to a work training in my accounting career in Houston, and I was really not a fan, but I actually had a good time on this trip. It's just that proximity thing it's tough. When you're able to compare it to a bunch of cities that don't have that issue, it's hard not to knock that against Houston.
In terms of fan bases, I'm glad that the title game featured the two most, rowdiest, most passionate, largest conglomerate of fan base. All due respect to the U and FAU, just not the same sheer size and numbers. And it just kind of speaks to the program prestige, right? Like I think that's what drives the amount of people you usually bring to these things. So I assume the title game was pretty raucous. I mean, not that we saw it in the Final Four game, right? I mean, every bucket that the Aztecs scored largely overshadowed or drowned out the FAU buckets. And same with UConn versus Miami. Although we were in the UConn section, maybe some bias there, but man, they brought the Northeast juice for sure. UConn had been thirsty for some of this, and they got it, and I'm glad they did.
I think UConn was a smallest school of the four in terms of
enrollment.
Yes, in terms of enrollment.
The student section was tiny from UConn for the title game, but it is tough to get there. I think we had someone tweeted us that like every airline just gouged prices when like as soon as they beat Gonzaga. And I'll say it, I was at the West region. There were not that many UConn fans there either, but UCLA and Gonzaga were both there too. Teams that play in Vegas all the time, they're on the West Coast, much easier travel. I don't want to throw too much shade at the U, Matt. I thought Miami traveled well. I thought FAU for its size and lack of tradition
for its size,
well
I agree with that. Really strong, but just realistically, you're not going to compete with UConn in the 5. San
Diego State was everywhere. I thought San Diego State was the most eye-opening. Like, whoa, okay, they got a lot of people here.
I think that program is one of the few California West Coast based programs that like is very legitimately passionately into that program and has been for multiple decades. Like, before Steve Fisher, I think took it to a new level, and they've been consistently. So that's why it's like they're like the exception to like my California hates basketball rule. So I'm glad the Aztecs did what they did. Okay, go.
I thought I read that San Diego State was giving students like a $500 travel credit.
Oh, I think Jim said
to the Final Four.
I think I heard that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's fantastic. More schools should do that, in my opinion, especially if you want your students at the Final Four, which I think you do.
Yeah, that would be a good thing. I think there needs to be more of a student presence there. But when you have it at the airplane hangar football stadiums, that's always going to be more of an alumni type of whatever thing. Media basketball game Saturday morning. Great to get out there with the boys, laced them up, went toe to toe with some players far better than me. It's really just it's not just the media game, but it's the former student manager and former players. It's a kind of a hodgepodge of dudes who play. Terrence Oglesby was the MVP. I think people saw the content on Twitter. It's not really fair when you have a professional basketball player playing against Matty Cox, who's quickly declining in his lateral mobility. Kai, we play smart, we play hard, but we can only, talent usually wins out, and it certainly did. Props to your team on TO's team for going, I don't know, not undefeated. You undefeated? Did you lose once?
We did lose the last game, but we were kind of messing around. And the other team, they had a lot of really big guys. Our weakness was size. I was guarding the biggest guy on the floor. That was just it's not a good idea. You can't guard college level forwards or centers. Just can't do it.
Colin Sampson was watching side. He was disgusted by your effort inside. So in case you had any chances of playing at Houston, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm just not a post defender at the next level, Matthew. We'll say that much. But yeah, Terrence Oglesby, great job. CJ Moore, good teammate over there from the Athletic. Not many media guys, like you said. It was a lot of like coaching staff guys, which is fun. Fun to meet those guys. Kellen Sampson, Jim, he was a gem.
Yeah. I couldn't play in the actual games. I got asked, I think, like 10 different times, like, hey, are you waiting to play? Like, everyone was very nice about like, oh, there's a guy here that's for some reason not on a team. Unfortunately, I couldn't step in, but I got to hang out with Kellen Sampson a lot on the sideline, really chopped it up deep about Houston. That was fun. It was cool to be there. Good to get some shots up. I hope to be able to play next year, pending whether I play basketball again, because I'm terrified of knee injuries. But
you can take my spot. Just take.
Still fun to attend, no matter what. I was glad we went.
Yeah, I think actually I just want to go and watch. And for playing is even worth it at this point.
So soft. Don't be soft.
Are you not sore today? Still, I'm actually okay today. I was sore yesterday.
Yeah, I was ridiculously sore afterwards. Yeah, it was laughable.
Stupid. 72-hour period from playing basketball. Anyway, notable names, people we saw and or talked to. I see you guys got a few names written down here. I think, Bill Murray, close. Didn't get a conversation with him at all.
Well, you weren't there at the end, Matthew.
We were very close.
Bill Murray was on the court. I could have touched him. I could have grabbed his hair.
Why didn't you?
I respect the guy too much. After seeing Tyler Hansbrough getting absolutely swarmed by multiple people at the bar we were at, I was like, man, you know what? These guys just, it's just annoying for them. Bill Murray was getting swarmed. It's like, I'll stay back. He did stuff a handful of confetti in his pockets before he walked off the court, which I thought that was just funny because he's Bill Murray. But I'm sure he was saving it for his son or something like that, which is a cool gesture. You skipped over Jonathan the Husky, who we did not see. The real Husky dog from UConn, who made a big deal about coming to the Final Four, didn't step into the building one time. Not sure if that's an Energy Stadium rule or if it's just the dog doesn't like loud noises. I don't know, but I didn't see him, Jim. I didn't get to pet him. That really rubs me the wrong way. I was hoping to see him.
I was legitimately worried this was going to ruin Kai's trip.
It's BS, man.
I hated it. I don't even want to go back to the Final Four. If I can't see Jonathan the Husky, what's the point? Like, this was a mission for Kai, folks. I am very sad that it didn't happen for him. It was a bummer. I thought we'd see him kind of, frolicking around in the stadium. It's big enough. He's not going to be like right on the court. Unfortunately, no, Jonathan. I'm sorry. I'm glad you bounced back and didn't let it completely rain on your parade.
Thanks. I have one more story, Matthew, too.
No, this is story time.
Well, Dick Vitale. Dick Vitale is the other guy. Didn't have a conversation with Dick, but we were walking through behind the media row, just towards our seat. And Dick Vitale is walking the other way, does not say a word to me, but grabs my arm with a vice grip and uses it to step up a very small incline on the way past me. He looked at me a little bit. He didn't say a word to me. I did say like, all yours, sir. Like go ahead.
Get off me.
Long touch period from Dick Vitale.
Get your hands off me.
Yeah, get off me.
No, he was.
I mean, I would have liked to have talked to him, but I thought that was pretty funny. He just grabbed a guy he doesn't know, goes by.
He's probably very impressed by the sturdiness of your arm, Kai. It stunned him for a second. Like, oh, this young man, I can really lean up on this guy.
He was also getting like called every single direction by people like Dick, hey, take a picture with me.
Dick still got it, man. People still, for all the jokes people throw at Dick Vitale on Twitter, in the real world, if you get outside your old Twitter or echo chamber, people love Dick Vitale. His cachet is, well, yeah, he's getting up there in age. I'm just saying that the interest in wanting to see, touch, be around him was very much palpable. So obviously Jim Nantz was the story of the whole media circus for all the right reasons. But yeah, Dick Vitale would probably be number 2 in terms of like people's tractor beam interest in him when he was nearby.
Yeah.
I was on TV. I think Kai was on TV too for a hot second at the cutaway before the FAU semifinal game. So if you guys saw that, congrats to you and shout out to me for getting a pretty good. So
Matt, quick story. I was texting my friends during the semifinal, or excuse me, the championship game, because we were lucky enough to get a courtside seat. Thank you, Mr. David Warlock, for giving that to the Weave. And one of my buddies was like, just pull up a huge picture of Giannis on your computer so that like bottom right corner of the TV, if people were looking at like, why is that one media member just staring at a picture of Giannis during the game? And it was, you could see it a couple of times. There was like a 3-minute stretch where I just had it up. And even the guys next to me on press row were like, what are you doing? Why is that on there? But it's funny to have that little power and kind of like the connection with people off TV.
It would be hard to be I guess if you're there as a local media member, like specific to a school, it's completely fine if you show emotion. As we saw San Diego State with Lamont Butler, we saw it last year with Kansas. The guys in front of us were going bananas during their second half run. But yeah, there's some audible opportunities if you want to chime in with your own commentary that could be picked up on the national broadcast. Good thing I was not there for the title game. I would have been all over that, acting like a child. Other cool, fun people we saw. The best part of the trip was honestly just the full day hang we had on Sunday at insert name of bar.
McIntyre's, I think.
Yeah,
shout out Kerry Miller, shout out Pat Taylor and his fellas, shout out Dagan Hughes and his family. A lot of great people just hanging there at that bar. We had a great time.
Oh, Jerry, 12 beats 5, 16 beats 1, shouts as well. Yeah, just a great hang. Yeah. Great hang all around. Closing thoughts for us, to you, listeners, followers. Thank you once again. Thank you. And thank you. This was our 8th season. So I was actually trying to back into this, Jim. I thought it was our 9th season.
No,
I think we need to go back in time to the archives and okay. Kai, do you have the articles of incorporation? Yeah.
15, 16 was our first season as 3-Man Weave. Podcast started a year later. So this was our 8th season as 3-Man Weave, our 7th for the podcast. Long time.
Yeah. Longer than I thought it would go when we started it. It was like, hey,
wow, pessimistic.
A little bit. Oh, I was super pessimistic. I think this little hobby is going to be a couple of years. It'll occupy some time. It continues to occupy time. So credit to that. That's only because we have people that pay attention to it. Kai, I'm not sure I would do it if I knew that no one listened to it. So shout out to the listeners, people in the chat. We appreciate you. And it's always good to meet you guys. So thank you.
Yeah, great people out there. Shockingly great people who actually know more about us in many cases, which is terrifying. We need to continue to raise our game. Off-season planning cadence, podcasting, we don't know, but we think we're going to do it every other week. So twice a month.
For like the first month or two.
We'll get back with the ability, yes, with the malleability to get back on the saddle and record if there's a whole swath of news or whatever. General plan though, so decompress, folks. Take some time off, and the portal. That's why the portal is so great. At least keeps these down months a lot more entertaining than they used to be, just extremely irrelevant and extremely lowly. Now we actually get some action. I'm going on assembly call tonight to talk IU transfer targets. You guys have been blowing up the chat about Mizzou targets. It's always fun for everyone out there involved. So glad that this new era of college hoops can provide some year-round stuff. Any guests that you'd like us to have on this summer? We always bicker about who we should get and when we should get them. So please provide us some fun ideas. I always love doing the coach discussions, especially some of the up-and-comer coaches. It's been kind of our theme historically. Like, it just feels so great as we look back fondly on the Bob Ritchie interview we did way back when to see him out this year get his tournament success. So we'll try and target some of those guys, lay that foundation for them. But if you have any recs and topics as well, please tell us. We are, starved and thirsty for such interest. Fellas, any final thoughts, concluding soliloquies? Jim, to you.
No, I'm like I said, I'm very appreciative that we get to do this. It is not lost on me anytime we're wandering around the bowels of the stadium and stuff that I would have killed to be there as little as 5 years ago. And it's just awesome to be a part of it. And again, it doesn't happen without help from people. We've been given a lot of boosts by people on social media and with jobs and stuff. And then the followership, a couple people are commenting in the chat. We appreciate you quite a bit. So that's where I'm at, Kai. I'm glad we got through another season. I'm excited to unwind and relax for a couple of weeks, but yes, I will be ready to get back into it very, very soon.
Yeah, next episode's in 2 weeks. So we're get back into it, off-season time. It's a great year. Great year, Matthew.
No days off. Well, except for a couple of weeks off here and there between podcasts. But you get the idea. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by today, all year, the years before that, and the many years to come. And 2 weeks, we'll be back talking off-season portal. We reset it. Fresh slate. A new champion shall be crowned in 2024 as the new chapter begins. Again, thank you, folks. Take care.
All right. Good job.
Is that right?
I haven't ended the stream yet, but there, no.
I don't know what was